What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So, when you think about the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, right? Most people would say Reggie Miller, okay? And I can understand why most people would say that. 18-year career, over 25,000 career points, 18 points a game for his NBA career. Although he never played in an NBA championship, he did appear in one NBA Finals back in 2000. Played against some of the best players in the NBA during the 1990s. Was one of the most clutch performers that we've seen in the history of the NBA. Former all-time three-point king. Now he's dropped to third all-time behind Ray Allen and Steph Curry, and eventually he's going to drop behind James Harden as well. But he's still one of the great shooters and scorers the game has ever seen. But Reggie Miller will tell you in a heartbeat that he's not the greatest pacer. Well, then you say, well, who's the greatest pacer? Well, he'll tell you that the greatest pacer is also the greatest basketball player never to play in the NBA, and that is Roger Brown. Okay? Roger Brown of the ABA version of the Indiana Pacers. Now, his numbers, career numbers, don't jump out at you if you look at his numbers abstractly and don't put them into context. I think it's something like 17 and a half points, over six rebounds. I think around a little bit over four assists per game. I don't think steals and blocks were tracked at first. Uh, I have to look at the stats, but his numbers don't jump out at you. But that's because of a couple of reasons. Number one, Roger Brown played within the flow of the offense. He didn't usually force anything. He was a guy that paced himself, which is what usually most smart players you know used to do. One of the guys that does a good job of that is Kawhi Leonard. Even though people criticize him for load manage or whatever, Kawhi is very good at pacing himself. Maybe doing a little bit too much at times. There's a detriment, but Roger was very good at pacing himself. Usually played a lot of minutes per game in his prime. Um, and he could do it all. Roger Brown was a guy that, even though he was not by definition a fast player, he had a very, very deceptively quick first step. He would get defenders with, you know, jab steps or misdirection moves, where you think he's going one way as defender, and then once you commit to that angle, he's gone the other way. He was a master at that. He was a great mid-range shooter. He was also a guy that back when only the ABA had a three-point shot, he had a three-point shot. But he could also take it to the cup. You know what I'm saying? Very good at slashing and getting to the basket. Because of all these weapons, because of all these abilities, this made him a dangerous player. And like I said, even though he didn't put up the same numbers that a Julius Erving or Artis Gilmore or Rick Barry did in the ABA, because he played with other players that could also score. When it came to crunch time, it was Roger Brown that sealed the deal. I remember watching a documentary where Bill Cosby, who often doesn't have anything good to say about some black people, no, I'm just joking, but Bill Cosby was just singing the praises of Roger Brown. You know, he was basically saying that Roger Brown is one of the greatest players that he had ever seen. And this wasn't Bill Cosby saying this in 1975 with the fro and the beard. This ain't the Uptown Saturday Night version of Bill Cosby. This is fucking the 2005 version of Bill Cosby with the hairline back middle of his goddamn head and the big old belly, and Bill started getting that goddamn turkey neck action going. He was saying that then, having seen Kobe and Jordan and Bird and all these other players, he's still saying that Roger Brown was one of the best players he's ever seen, period, NBA or ABA. And also, what hurt Roger Brown is that he didn't get his opportunity to play until later, which also hurt another guy that was devastated by the scandal that he was involved in, Connie Hawkins. Connie Hawkins was 27, I think, when he finally made it to the NBA. Roger Brown was 25, and already, Roger had bad knees. So he wasn't at or near his prime for very long, but he still delivered hardware to the Pacers organization, helped to deliver, I should say, something that Reggie Miller never did. I believe the Pacers won 3 NBA championships under the leadership of Roger Brown. But Roger Brown was born in 1942 in New York, Brooklyn, New York to be exact. And as a youngster, he already showed prowess for athletics, in particular basketball. And as a 6'5" forward guard, Brown started at Brooklyn's George W. Wingate High School and had signed to play for the University of Dayton in 1960 after his senior year. But he was banned from the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA, and the National Basketball Association, or the NBA, when it was revealed that while still in high school and along with fellow Brooklyn star Connie Hawkins, who I just mentioned, he had been introduced to a gambler who was involved in illegal point shaving. This man's name was Jack Molinas. Now, Roger Brown was never accused of point shaving, or was never proven he was even involved in that stuff, but his only crime was associating with Molinas. With the NCAA and NBA ban in place and no other alternative, he continued to play basketball in Dayton's amateur leagues. And in 1967, with the formation of the American Basketball Association, or the ABA, he signed with the Indiana Pacers. In fact, he was the first player the Pacers organization signed when they were formed. Now, during his 8-year career, 1967 to 1975, spent with the Pacers, Memphis Sounds, and then Utah Stars, Brown scored 10,498 points, appeared in 4 All-Star games, and earned 3 championship rings. Now, later on, the NBA reinstated Brown, but he never played in the league. Roger Brown was one of 7 players unanimously selected to the ABA All-Time Team in 1997. He is one of 4 players. The others are Reggie Miller, George McGinnis, and Mel Daniels. By the way, Mel Daniels was the guy who I was trying to think of with that story with Wilt and the San Diego Conquistadors, and Mel Daniels got involved in the fracas, and Wilt was holding. I couldn't think of his damn name. There was something Daniel. Just couldn't think of his fucking name. But anyway, amongst those players, he had this number 35 retire with the Pacers. Now, when you think of Roger Brown, you think of how he was scouted. Okay, this is some of the old scouting from back in the day, right? This isn't hyperbole. Okay, this is actual real scouting. So this is scouting from Jim O'Brien, Complete Handbook of Pro Basketball from 1972-73 on Roger Brown, one of the great one-on-one players in pro ball, very intelligent player with great offensive moves, an excellent shooter and three-point threat, can work his way inside as well as anybody, paces himself as he often plays full 48 minutes, Once hit a record 53 points in the playoff game versus the LA Stars, averaged 28.5 points in that series in which Pacers won first ABA title with 53 points, 39 and 45 in the last three games of that series. Holds ABA record of hitting 14 straight field goals in one game and 21 in a row over three games. Elected to at-large seat, what it actually, this talks about how he got involved into politics afterwards. Um, Frank Ramsey of the Kentucky Colonels said about Roger Brown, he can turn it on and turn it off whenever he wants to. He hit 15 out of 19 shots against us and never broke out of a trot. When he turns it on, he's one of the most gifted and most complete players in the league. He should be illegal, says one ABA player who got isolated against him on one side of the court. A maneuver Pacers pull off when forced to set up on offense. One on one, he's a plague, says one ABA coach. Memories of Mike Caldwell. The best game I've ever seen, without a doubt, between the Pacers and the Rick Barry led Nets. I think they were the New York Nets at the time, right? In regulation, the Pacers were down by three with 2 seconds left when Freddie Lewis banked a three, where they had a three-point shot in the NBA, to send the game into overtime. In the overtime, the Pacers were down one with 10 seconds to go, and New York had the ball out of bounds. Roger Brown jumped in front of Barry and drew a charge. Then the Pacers cleared out the floor for Brown, with Barry playing defense with just 2 ticks on the clock. Roger drove to the basket and put up a soft finger roll. The ball rolled in and bedlam ensued. Barry had scored 52, but Mr. Clutch, Roger Brown, had answered the bell once again. And that's what I'm talking. He may not have had the most gaudy numbers, but he was considered by most the most devastating one-on-one player in the ABA during his best years and the ultimate prime time performer. Now, if you notice, I'm talking about him in the past tense, and that's because he's no longer here. After his basketball career, Roger Brown served as a Republican on the Indianapolis City Council for 4 years, but he was not blessed with a long life. When he was just 54 years old and just 5 days before the death of Notorious B.I.G., Roger Brown passed away at the age of 54 from liver cancer. And I do vaguely remember reading about that, but at the time, I didn't know who Roger Brown was. And like most people, I was like, well, maybe he was just some guess he was okay. But he was a legendary Pacers player. Um, I just want to go into his numbers one more time. Now, when you look at his numbers, 17.4 points, 6.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists. Those are good. If you look at the first 5 years of his career, between the ages of 25 and 29 or 30, before his knees really started failing, he averaged 20.6 points, 7.2 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Now, steals and blocks were not counted at that time, but who knows how many steals he averaged? I don't know. Maybe two and a half, maybe a block. I don't know. We don't know those numbers. But he was a very intelligent basketball player and truly one of the greats. And if he wanted to, he could have averaged 30 or more points. But, what would have been the trade off? more acclaim from fans, but maybe only one championship, maybe none. So he did what was best for the team and played within the offense and only took over when need be. So he was a superstar with a Tim Duncan mentality. And today he gets his just desserts or just due. Maybe that's better. Just due. Roger Brown, truly one of the great ABA players ever.